The next morning, I walked across campus not as Ryan pretending to be Rachel, but as someone who had chosen this path. The click of my shoes no longer felt humiliating. The swish of the skirt wasn't a punishment. They were reminders. That I wasn't hiding. That I wasn't apologizing. That, for the first time in my life, I was walking forward with intention. And when Lena spotted me across the library that afternoon, she didn't smirk or tease. She just smiled, soft, knowing, and for the first time, I smiled back without hesitation. Rachel wasn't a mistake anymore. She was me. When I walked into class the next morning, something had changed. Not in the uniform, I'd worn it for weeks by now. The real change was inside me. My shoulders weren't hunched. My steps weren't hesitant. And because I carried myself differently, people treated me differently. There were no smirks, no whispers. A few students even nodded politely, as if I'd always been there, as if Rachel Callahan was just another familiar part of the campus. And in that moment, I realized Lena had been right about something I never wanted to admit. Confidence was contagious. It started small. A classmate asked to borrow my notes and called me Rachel, without hesitation. A professor praised my presentation on Elizabethan poetry, referring to me as Miss Callahan in front of the entire seminar. Nobody laughed. Nobody questioned it. Soon, Rachel wasn't just what the system called me. It was who everyone saw me as. And disturbingly, I didn't correct them. Lena, of course, noticed everything. One evening, as we left the library together, she nudged me with her elbow. "You're getting comfortable, aren't you?" I rolled my eyes. "Don't start." "I'm not judging," she said quickly. For once, her tone wasn't teasing. It was gentle. "It suits you. You're sharper. Braver. More," she searched for the word. "Yourself." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. I hated that she was right. I hated that I didn't want to go back. But I also hated how much I wanted her approval. That weekend, our department hosted a formal mixer, a networking event with visiting lecturers and alumni. Attendance was mandatory, which meant every student was expected to arrive in full university attire. I stood in front of the mirror, nerves rattling my stomach. This wasn't just class. This was public. Professors, donors, alumni. If anyone saw through me, if anyone questioned why Rachel Callahan didn't quite fit, it could unravel everything. I nearly backed out, until Lena appeared at my door with a garment bag slung over her shoulder. "Don't panic," she said with a grin. I brought reinforcements. Inside was a blazer cut to fit over the blouse, tailored just enough to sharpen the lines of the uniform. Subtle makeup supplies. Even a different pair of shoes, slightly higher in the heel but far more flattering. "You're insane," I whispered. She only shrugged. "If you're going to do this, do it right." Walking into that hall was like stepping onto a stage. The chandeliers glowed above polished wooden floors, and the hum of conversation filled the air. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. But no one looked twice. No one laughed. Alumni shook my hand, introduced themselves, asked about my research. Professors nodded in approval. For 2 hours, I wasn't pretending. I was just Rachel. And when Lena slipped beside me with a glass of sparkling water and whispered, "See, you belong," I believed her. But as the night wound down, I noticed something unsettling. Across the room, a fellow graduate student, Mark, a sharp, ambitious guy with a habit of noticing things he shouldn't, was staring at me. Not politely. Not curiously. Suspiciously. And in that look, I realized the truth. Not everyone was going to accept Rachel so easily. Mark Reynolds was the kind of student who thrived on ambition and gossip in equal measure. He wasn't cruel, at least not openly, but he had a knack for noticing details others missed. And the way he'd stared at me during the mixer had left a pit in my stomach. For the next week, his eyes seemed to follow me everywhere. In the seminar hall. In the library. Even across the cafeteria. He didn't speak, not at first, but his silence was worse than words. It felt like waiting for a storm to break. It happened after an evening lecture. The crowd thinned, the halls emptied, and as I packed up my notes, Mark lingered by the door. "Rachel," he said, drawing out the name like it tasted strange in his mouth. Or should I say, Ryan? My heart plummeted. I tried to play dumb. I don't know what you're talking about. But he smirked the way someone does when they've already won. Come on. I've seen you before orientation. You didn't look like this back then. So tell me, what's the game? Is it some kind of joke? Or are you hiding something? His words sliced deeper than I wanted to admit. I forced my voice steady. You're imagining things. But the glint in his eyes told me he didn't believe a word. Later that night, I told Lena. She listened, arms folded, brow furrowed. Of course it's Mark, she muttered. He's always sniffing around, trying to find leverage on people. Don't panic. Don't panic? I snapped. He could ruin everything. If he tells the dean, or the department. Then we make sure he doesn't, she cut in, sharp and certain. Leave him to me. The confidence in her voice should have been comforting. Instead, it scared me. What exactly did she mean by that? The next few days, Mark grew bolder. He dropped hints in class, comments laced with double meaning. Some people are really good at pretending, aren't they? Or, funny how appearances can be deceiving. Every word was a threat hidden in plain sight. Finally, he cornered me outside the library. You know, he said casually, this place values honesty. If certain people found out about your situation, I doubt they'd be very understanding. Unless, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. Maybe make it worth my while to stay quiet. Blackmail. He didn't even try to hide it. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but fear froze me in place. And then, out of nowhere, Lena appeared. Is there a problem? Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. Mark straightened, feigning innocence. Not at all. Just having a friendly chat with Rachel. The way he said my name made my skin crawl. Lena stepped between us. Good. Because if I hear you've been anything but friendly, I'll make sure every professor in this department knows what you've been up to. Mark blinked, thrown off balance. What are you talking about? Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Don't act innocent. I've seen your plagiarism notes. Your side hustles, selling essays to undergrads. One word from me, and you'll be packing your bags before the semester's over. For the first time, Mark faltered. His jaw tightened, but he didn't reply. He just shot me a final glare and walked off into the night. My knees nearly buckled with relief. How did you know all that? I asked Lena. She smirked. Let's just say Mark's not as clever as he thinks. He leaves his laptop open in the library way too often. I should have been horrified at her audacity. Instead, all I felt was gratitude, dangerous, overwhelming gratitude. For the first time since this ordeal began, I realized Lena wasn't just the reason I'd become Rachel. She was the reason Rachel could survive. And that terrified me almost as much as Mark's threat. For a few blessed days, life almost felt steady again. Mark had backed off after Lena's threat, and though his glare still burned across classrooms, he kept his mouth shut. But secrets never stay buried on a campus like Westford. Not forever. It started with laughter in the cafeteria. Two undergrads at the next table whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Did you hear? Rachel Callahan isn't really Rachel. No way. What do you mean? They say she used to be. The rest was drowned out by the clatter of a dropped tray, but my blood ran cold. The rumor had started. By the end of the week, I could feel it everywhere, sidelong glances, sudden silences when I walked by, the kind of half-curious, half-cruel stares that follow someone who doesn't quite fit. Even in the seminar room, I wasn't safe. Professor Aldridge, a stern man who rarely noticed anything beyond his dusty manuscripts, paused one afternoon as I answered a question. His eyes lingered a second too long, his brow furrowed ever so slightly. He didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. The doubt was there. And that scared me more than anything Mark had ever threatened. That night, I stormed into Lena's apartment, pacing like a caged animal. It's starting, I hissed. People know. Or they think they know. I can't keep doing this if it all comes crashing down. She watched me silently from the couch, arms folded, eyes sharp but softer than usual. When I finally stopped pacing, she spoke. Rachel, she said simply. The name hit me like an anchor. Stop calling me that, I snapped. No, she said, rising to her feet. Because that's who you are now. That's who you've become. Do you think rumors matter more than the truth you've built? Do you think whispers erase the confidence you've found? Her words cut deeper than my fear. Because even in my panic, I knew she was right. Later, alone in her bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. The blouse, the skirt, the bow, the subtle touches Lena had taught me, concealer softening shadows, posture straightening lines. Once, I would have ripped it all off in disgust. Now, I adjusted the bow, smoothed the skirt. And for the first time, I whispered aloud, just to the reflection. I am Rachel. The sound startled me, but it didn't feel wrong. But as comforting as that truth was, another thought haunted me. If I was becoming Rachel for real, what would happen when the world demanded Ryan back? And worse, what if I didn't want him anymore? Rumors are easy to ignore when they're just whispers behind your back. It's different when someone says them out loud. It happened in the main lecture hall, a packed seminar with nearly 50 students. I had just sat down, adjusting my notes, when Mark Reynolds finally made his move. "Excuse me, Professor," Mark said loudly, rising to his feet with a smug look. "Before we start today, I think it's only fair we address something. About Rachel Callahan." Every head in the room turned toward me. My stomach lurched. The professor frowned. "Mr. Reynolds, this is hardly the time." But Mark pressed on. "Don't you think it's dishonest, sir? For someone to enroll under a false identity? To pretend to be something they're not?" A ripple of whispers spread through the room. Eyes bore into me, sharp and curious, waiting for me to crack.